Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, so hopefully you find this one interesting. This movie is a thriller from Poland, Polish language English subs, released in the year 2016, directed by Wojciech Kaspersky, and this film is called The Mountain Lodge. It's also widely known as The High Frontier, so if you can't find it under one title, please look for it under the other. So the story to The High Frontier, aka The Mountain Lodge, it's set in the mountainous areas between Poland and Ukraine on the border. So this mountainous area, it's snowing, it's a very unforgiving landscape, and it's a landscape that is the scene of a bonding session between an ex-border patrol guard and his two sons. So the two teenage sons, they've actually had a lot of trauma in the past concerning family, and so the father is trying to reunite them and trying to make a better future. So when they get to this old station, which is going to be their place of residence for the weekend, they get there and they're trying to talk to each other, but one of the teenage sons is very reluctant to do this, and so it's clear that the trauma of the past is still having a devastating effect. So unfortunately their weekend is going to get very complicated upon the arrival of a mysterious stranger who's burst through the door and he's collapsed during a blizzard. Now it's clear that he has hypothermia, that he doesn't get medical attention soon he's going to die. So the father and the two teenage sons, they take care of him, and he is muttering to himself that he's left some people behind in a canyon. And so this really concerns the father. He believes that they might still be alive, so he really wants answers. So he tells the two teenage sons to handcuff this man to the bed, and that if he wakes up, don't let him out. And so when the father goes out, he comes to the accident site, and this is where he realizes that there's a lot more to this stranger than he first thought, and that maybe the two teenage sons that he's left behind might be in grave danger. So whether or not that is the case is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on The Mountain Lodge, aka The High Frontier. I was very excited to see this film, but I didn't really have too much expectation based on the fact that I hadn't heard anyone talk about it. So it really was a blind experience, but what I was basing my expectations on was previous Polish films, and European film in general. That the two previous Polish films, one of them was a horror film called The Lure that I thought was exceptionally creative, and another action thriller that I thought once again was creative, and it was something that is very typical European cinema. And so coming into The Mountain Lodge, I thought, alright, this looks very interesting, and so I wanted another Polish film that was going to make me excited. This is a European film, okay, once again, this is my element coming into European cinema. And so was the Mountain Lodge going to be another film that I could recommend, or was The Mountain Lodge going to be a bit of disappointment? And unfortunately, it was the latter. And I believe that this is a movie that does disappoint for the simple fact that it doesn't have the time and attention that typical European cinema has. So maybe that's a little bit unfair to judge it against other European films, but for me it felt like a very disposable Hollywood thriller. It's a formula that has been done time and time again, and it doesn't have enough creative liberty to make a shadow of its own. And so when you have a movie like that, it is definitely a major negative, is because if you have a film that you've seen time and time again, you know exactly how it's going to pan out. The movie has a little bit of a twist at the end that I've seen before, and it really didn't provide anything terribly interesting to maintain my interest from the first minute to the last. Now I will say that the biggest positive to this film is the exceptional production. I thought the overall cinematography is very smart, because not only is it showing you the harsh landscapes of this particular area in the world, it's also a symbolization of the barren landscape, which is the mentality of these people. The family dynamics of what was going on, the trauma that was basically influencing their behavior, I thought the overall mood and the atmosphere that the movie creates is a symbolization of that harsh, desolate isolation that not only the viewer actually feels, but also these characters are feeling. And so I thought, alright, the start of the film, it does give you the indication that it is going to be a very unforgiving and very harsh film. And that very unforgiving and harsh feeling that the overall cinematography creates, I thought was a masterstroke. It actually made a character of its own. So I thought, alright, well that's a promising start. How is it going to elevate itself off this platform? But unfortunately it doesn't really leave that platform, and the cinematography is pretty much the only real positive I can come up with in a movie, as I said, that was very, very forgettable. Now to start off with, it is a movie about traumas. It's a movie about this family that are going through something absolutely horrible, but because I didn't really care about any of the characters at all, I didn't care about their situation, I didn't care about their plight, and because the movie does spend a little bit of time introducing into these unlikable characters, the overall situation that this family were feeling, and the situation this family were facing, because you don't care about it, the overall time and attention it takes to actually introduce these characters, it doesn't work. And so if it doesn't work, it becomes boring, and unfortunately that boredom does come over into the thrilling moments. The thrilling moments aren't that thrilling because you can disconnect yourself from these characters, and if you feel as though these aren't your neighbours or these aren't your friends or loved ones, they're just cannon fodder. And because the situation isn't that interesting, it doesn't really play off anything to warrant gotten this movie recommended. And so I thought the overall characters were very forgettable, therefore the actors really couldn't play anything off them. I didn't know if the acting was good because the writing was actually quite poor, and I just found myself frustrated and wanting to know more about these characters, but Wojciech Kaspersky doesn't allow that to actually happen. And so when the horrible moments are happening, I didn't think it was quite as suspenseful because I wasn't on the edge of my seat because I checked out well before the end. And so the movie does feel like the majority of the film is going through the motions because it does spend a little bit of time with the characters, but as I said, because they're unlikable, the overall runtime, it feels as though it's very stagnated. It doesn't really go anywhere to a point where I thought, alright, well, this definitely wasn't a film I was hoping it would be. So there are some set pieces that I thought would have been effective if I actually cared about this family. The family dynamics and how they're actually struggling with things. There's a lot of mystery behind the family and what's happened in the past, but the mystery isn't clarified enough to actually feel as though it was satisfying. And so I thought to myself, alright, well, where is this movie going? It just didn't feel like it had a very competent sort of thought process in actually executing the ideas in what it takes to make a very captivating thriller. So at the end of the film, I thought, alright, well, I could kind of know where this was going because, as I said, it's like a cheat sheet. You know, you're basically one step ahead of the overall situation, and because of that, the movie doesn't really have any saving grace. Yes, the cinematography is excellent, but as far as European cinema is concerned, this is definitely one of the more forgettable ones. Very competently made, but unfortunately the story, the ideas behind everything just weren't executed to a satisfying level, and therefore it becomes a very bitter disappointment. So overall, for The Mountain Lodge, aka The High Frontier, don't get your hopes up this is going to be another European masterclass, because it certainly isn't. I'm going to give this film 2 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. So next, thank you for watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.